On the morning of January the 2nd of 2020, Robert Thomas went into the leasing office of Vista Del Valle Apartments in Las Vegas. The 93-year-old was angry that his home had been damaged by flooding. He'd come to blame maintenance management and went to the office with violent intentions. The ensuing interaction is captured on CCTV in its entirety. Thomas, who was wearing a black coat and a black hat, talked to a male worker while the latter's female colleague sat behind the desk. As the interaction progressed, the nonagenarian reached into his coat and pulled out a pistol. He shot a computer on the other side of the room, prompting the woman to get up and call 911. In the moments that followed, Thomas calmly took aim at the man as he was cowering on a chair. The senior citizen shot him in the right leg and the worker dropped to the floor, clutching his wound. Thomas then shot him again in the other leg. Metro Officer Ronald Horniak arrived at the scene shortly thereafter and shot at Thomas through the glass door, shattering it in the process. The bullet struck the lapel of Thomas's jacket, but he wasn't harmed. The officer aimed his service weapon at the senior citizen, screaming, "Drop the gun, drop it now!" He surrendered, placed his weapon on the desk and put his hands in the air. As seen on body cam and surveillance video, Horniak grabbed Thomas by the arm and pulled him to the ground face first, causing him to sustain a cut to his head. Thomas was taken to a local hospital and then booked. He was charged with attempted murder with a deadly weapon, first-degree kidnapping, burglary while in possession of a deadly weapon, carrying a concealed weapon without a permit, and 3 counts of discharging a gun inside a building. The maintenance worker he'd shot was treated at University Medical Center and released the day of the shooting. When Thomas's mugshot was made public, there was some speculation regarding his cognitive ability based on his sheer appearance in the photo. He was wide-eyed, his hair was disheveled, and his mouth was agape. The man, who turned 94 after his arrest, died of natural causes in May of 2020 while he was still in the custody of the Metropolitan Police Department. Number 8. John Gula. On August the 4th of 2025, Florida man John Gula and his girlfriend, Rosinda Ariana, were caught on surveillance cameras while they were in the midst of a verbal exchange with Emilia Sola Ortiz, the property manager of Rebecca Towers in Miami Beach. Ortiz had gone to the 10th floor of the senior living complex to talk to 83-year-old Gula about a failed inspection and the state of his apartment. The nature of the conversation was unclear, but as the interaction progressed, Gula brandished a foldable knife from his pocket. He calmly pulled the blade out and lunged towards Ortiz, who was out of the camera's frame. He stabbed her several times, but Ortiz fought back and pushed Gula against the wall. As they grappled, Ariana seemingly tried to pull her boyfriend off the building manager. Ortiz was able to disarm Gula and threw the blade down the hall. As seen in the footage, the knife strikes had immediate consequences, and she began bleeding profusely. Ortiz then hobbled away, leaving behind a trail of her own blood. Gula went after her and reportedly tried to pull out a second knife and attack her from behind. Fortunately, Ortiz, whose shirt was soaked in blood, was able to escape and made her way up the stairs, repeatedly screaming, "Help me!" Resident Maria del Carmen Alonso was at her apartment when she heard the commotion. She opened the door and sheltered Ortiz inside her home, where she passed out from her injuries. First responders rushed to the scene and Ortiz was taken to a local trauma center. She had a knife wound to her torso and a laceration to the back of the head. The latest updates indicated that she was at home recovering from her injuries. Gula was found hiding out at Ariana's apartment, and responding officers reportedly saw him coming out of a bathroom with blood on his shoes. He was arrested for attempted second-degree murder and other associated charges. Number 7. Ilie Istudor.
I lost my senses, went down and picked the gun from the garden.
Romanian man Ilie Istudor escaped the communist regime in his native country and arrived in Australia as a refugee in the 1950s. He would spend the decades that followed working and living in his adoptive country. After retirement, Istudor maintained an active interest in the management of his building in the western Sydney suburb of Lakemba. The interest would eventually turn into an obsession and a murderous grudge towards strata manager Stephen Smith, with whom Istudor was reported to have frequently clashed over the manner in which the building was run. The boiling point reportedly came after Smith had arranged to increase the levies. Ahead of a tenants' meeting on April the 24th of 2014, Istudor stashed a sawn-off .22 caliber rifle in the bushes outside the building. He was experienced with weapons, having trained in the Romanian army as a youth. As the meeting unfolded, Istudor reportedly became angry and slammed the table on the floor. During a break, the 84-year-old went outside and retrieved the rifle. He then returned to the meeting, took aim at Smith and shot him in the neck. I felt a burning sensation in my neck and blood dropped onto the papers where I was writing, Smith recalled. Realizing that Istudor had shot him, Smith rushed the older man and they both fell down some stairs. Smith's vision then became blurry. I had my hand over my neck to try to stop the bleeding and realized there was also a hole in the back of my neck. The victim remembered. The bullet had narrowly missed a vital artery and Smith survived. Istudor was arrested on the charge of shoot with intent to murder and associated weapons charges. During the interviews that followed, he told law enforcement that he'd lost his senses. However, Istudor also reportedly boasted about his marksman skills, claiming he could hit a 20-cent coin off a fence from 100 meters away. Investigators would learn that Istudor had written to Smith in the days leading up to the meeting, threatening that he would remove him legally or illegally. When police searched Istudor's unit, they found a note that read, "I will put an end to him," meaning the victim. As the legal proceedings unfolded, prosecutors argued that given Istudor's advanced age, one would expect him to be fragile, before contrasting that statement saying that he had a fire in his heart and that he was angry, armed, and able to carry out his threats. In January of 2016, after hearing evidence from psychiatric experts, a Sydney District Court judge accepted that Istudor was suffering from paranoid psychosis at the time of the shooting and found him not guilty of attempted murder by reason of mental illness. He was ordered to be held indefinitely in a mental health institution. Number 6. Andrew Lester. Missouri teenager Ralph Yarl went to pick up his twin brothers from a residence in Kansas City on the evening of April the 13th of 2023. He was supposed to arrive at an address in the 1100 block of Northeast 115th Terrace, but he mistakenly went to a home less than a block away on Northeast 115th Street. He rang the doorbell of a property belonging to 84-year-old Andrew Lester. Without warning, the homeowner fired a .32 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver through the glass front door. Yarl, an academically gifted student and musician, was hit in the head and arm. As he retreated, he reportedly heard Lester yell at him, "Don't come around here." Yarl was hospitalized and Lester was briefly detained on the morning of April the 14th, but no charges were immediately filed. The case drew national attention and widespread outrage. A number of celebrities, including actresses Viola Davis, Jennifer Hudson, and Halle Berry, called for justice for Yarl. Towards that end, hundreds of protesters marched outside Lester's home demanding that he be officially charged. The senior citizen was eventually arrested on April the 17th for armed criminal action and first-degree assault, a charge which in Missouri was equivalent to attempted murder. Lester told the authorities that he believed Yarl was trying to break into his home, adding that he was scared to death of his size. The teen was 5 foot 8 inches tall and weighed about 140 pounds. Clay County prosecutor Zachary Thompson stated after Lester's arrest that there was a racial component to the case. After he was shot, Yarl staggered and sought help at 3 homes in the area before one resident ordered him to lie on the ground with his hands above his head. Yarl complied and passed out before first responders arrived at the scene. The teens aren't told the media at the time. You hear these stories about racism in America and you think, wow, how sad is that? But then you have this little bit of hope because you feel like it's very far away and it would never happen to your family and you. But God, the people in this country are sick. Within days, a GoFundMe set up to help Yarl and his family with hospital bills received over $3.3 million, and then President Joe Biden personally called his family to discuss his recovery. Lester, a Vietnam War veteran and retired airline mechanic, pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of second-degree assault on February the 14th of 2025, 4 days before his trial was due to commence. Sentencing was scheduled for March, but Lester died of natural causes on February the 19th. Number 5. Dennis Winn.
Just let me know if it's too tight, all right?
What? I can't breathe.
On June the 26th of 2024, Walmart workers were performing a mock drone delivery in the Overlook at Lake Louisa neighborhood of Lake County, Florida. 72-year-old resident Dennis Winn believed that the drone was surveilling him and he grabbed a 9mm pistol from his safe. In the moments that followed, Winn took aim at the UAV and opened fire. Upon being hit, the drone took off and was subsequently retrieved by Walmart employees. They left the scene and reported the matter to local authorities. When the police went to Winn's home, he admitted to shooting the UAV and gave them a rundown of the situation, explaining that the drone had hovered above his house for about 10 minutes. As seen in body cam footage, the homeowner asked, "How much trouble am I in?" To which the officer replied, "Quite a bit."
How much trouble am I in?
Quite a bit. You've been honest with me, I'm gonna be honest with you.
He was arrested and an officer handcuffed him at the front, asking if it was too tight. Winn jokingly said, "I can't breathe," which resulted in the officers bursting into laughter. In November of 2024, Winn accepted a restitution order, agreeing to pay $5,000 for the damage caused to the drone. Many internet users reacting to the shooting sided with Winn, including news personality Colin Rugg, who said New Jersey could use this guy right now. The incident coincided with numerous mysterious drone sightings that were reported in the US, particularly in New Jersey and most notably around Thanksgiving. Winn's reaction to shoot at an UAV appeared to be in tone with that of soon-to-be President Donald Trump. In December, Trump wrote on X, "Mystery drone sightings all over the country. Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know now, otherwise shoot them down." Number 4. Peter Kindell. Leading up to January of 2025, Englishman Peter Kindell and his neighbor John Jones had been involved in a long-standing feud over smoking and noise at a housing complex for people over the age of 60 in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire. 80-year-old Kindell, who reportedly had a history of depression and paranoia, viciously attacked Jones on January the 3rd. He struck him at least 8 times with a hammer in the complex's lobby. 2 women intervened, rendering aid to Jones, and called the emergency services. Kindell briefly left the scene, went to his property, and then returned with a large kitchen knife. While the Good Samaritans were on the phone with the emergency operator, Kindell stabbed 76-year-old Jones, inflicting fatal injuries. He was arrested shortly thereafter but made no comments to law enforcement. In court, Kindell pursued the diminished responsibility defense, arguing that the killing had been influenced by his decaying mental health. Prosecutors didn't accept his defense, and by the fall of 2025, a jury found him guilty of murder. At Aylesbury Crown Court, Judge Jonathan Cooper described the attack as cold-blooded, noting that Kindell appeared to be lucid in the aftermath and that he displayed a total lack of remorse. The man was handed a mandatory life sentence, of which he had to serve at least 22 years behind bars. Judge Cooper told Kindell, "If you choose to commit murder at the age of 80, the strong likelihood is that you will die in prison." Number 3. Vivian Stewart Nation. On July the 5th of 2024, Maryland law enforcement was called to Leisure World, a senior living community in Montgomery County. 78-year-old Beverly Rose Fletcher was found dead in an office attached to the family room of her apartment. She'd suffered blunt force trauma and stabbing injuries. Her 80-year-old husband, who was identified as Vivian Stewart Nation, was arrested at the scene. He told the police that he and Fletcher had been arguing about an issue with his doctor. As tensions escalated, Nation took his wife to the ground, got on top of her, and pushed a hammer against her throat with both hands. The tool was still pressed against the woman's neck when officers found her body. Additionally, a bloodied knife and screwdriver were found at the scene. Nation, who'd been married to Fletcher for 13 years, was arrested for first-degree murder. He didn't have a record for serious or violent crimes, and as of the latest updates on the case, he was set to undergo a cognitive evaluation. Montgomery County State Attorney John McCarthy told the press, "I'm sure it's a tough situation for both of these families. We're dealing with a gentleman who's been dealing with some cognitive challenges in recent years, and this happens." Today's topic was requested by Kai Maraga 6146. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Edward Frederick Wackerman. In 2022, the Oak Fire ravaged nearly 20,000 acres in Mariposa County and the Sierra National Forest in Central California. It was initially reported on July the 22nd, and it wasn't until September the 2nd that the wildfire was fully contained. Fire officials described the blaze's behavior as extreme due to a combination of heat, low humidity, and parched vegetation, while the smoke cloud it produced reached up to 20,000 feet and was visible as far as Reno, Nevada. No fatalities were reported, but the fire damaged hundreds of structures, including at least 127 single-family residences, forcing a massive evacuation and a state of emergency being declared in Mariposa County. It also affected the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation, a federally unrecognized Native American tribe indigenous to the region. by destroying cultural sites and displacing tribal members. Contained in the Oak Fire, which would be described by the Los Angeles Times as the most destructive in the history of Mariposa County, cost over $100 million. Suppressing it was achieved through the combined effort of 17 helicopters, hundreds of fire trucks, dozens of bulldozers, and over 2,000 fire personnel, 3 of whom were seriously injured in the process. On June the 16th of 2023, at the end of an 11-month investigation, Edward Frederick Wackerman, a former firefighter, was arrested for deliberately starting the fire. The investigation involved the FBI, the National Park Service's Law Enforcement Division, and CAL FIRE. The authorities didn't comment on 71-year-old Wackerman's motive or the manner in which he'd caused the blaze. By March of 2024, the case against him listed 16 felony charges, including aggravated arson and arson that caused great bodily injury. The news of his arrest had little impact for most of the residents who'd lost their homes. Resident Jeremy Ogerly told a media outlet, "You forgive, I guess." Recalling the night that his home burned down, he said, "I stayed until about 10 o'clock. I could go in my house and see with no lights, no power. I could fully see everything. Outside it was like daylight. And it was about 10:15 when I left, and I could feel the heat." Number 1. Raymond Dean Perry. In the fall of 2020, Raymond Dean Perry was asked to leave a Village Inn restaurant in St. George, Utah, after he was yelling profanity on his cell phone. When employees confronted him, Perry directed his rage towards them, screaming and cursing them out. Staff called the police and officers arrived as 71-year-old Perry was pulling away in his vehicle. The officers attempted a traffic stop, but Perry sped away, cutting off multiple vehicles in both lanes and nearly causing several collisions. A chase ensued, during the course of which Perry held his hands out to the window of his vehicle as if he was angry with the officers. The police eventually boxed Perry in on the side of the roadway and he pulled over. During the interaction that followed, he was irate at law enforcement, and his belligerence consisted of profanity and screaming. His speech was slurred and he was unable to sit still, in addition to having body tremors, bloodshot eyes, a strong chemical odor on his breath, and visible bruxism, meaning the involuntary grinding of the teeth. Following a failed sobriety, Perry was arrested for DUI, and a subsequent investigation revealed that he'd been smoking methamphetamine. Additionally, the man had a suspended driver's license, and the vehicle he was driving had no registration and no insurance. Perry was charged with criminal trespass, reckless driving, failure to stop at the command of an officer, possession of a controlled substance, driving on a suspended license, and operating a vehicle without insurance. Thanks for watching. Would you rather stop aging or have the ability to turn anything into gold? Let us know in the comments section below.